But with the spring coming, I guess my throat decided to have a change of seasons as well, so, you know, I'm a little stuffed up. But thanks to James for putting the Purell out on the back table, so I've been coating myself in it, so I'm pretty germ-free right now. With that introduction, I think we have a lot to live up to. You just went out that way. What are you doing? All right, so I guess this is the clicker that we get to use. As James said, we're both from Kendall College. My name is Sherwin Cory. I'm the Academic Director of Distance Learning at Kendall, which means that I work with all the deans, the Program Director for School of Business, also known as Aurora, and all the faculty to develop online learning, on-campus learning, and use our Blackboard system. You guys use Blackboard, right? Moodle? Okay, so it's similar. So we use our Blackboard system. I do the instructional design work as well. So there's a lot of things that happen at Kendall that I manage through the Center for Teaching and Learning. It's not quite as large and beautiful as this Center for Teaching and Excellence, but and we're up.
Advance.
Sure.
And then I think there's the slides on us.
Okay.
After that.
After this?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Oh. I forgot we put those in there. All right, so yeah, that's me. Okay.
And then I'm the program director for the School of Business. So I taught in the program for several years before being promoted to lead the program. I'm currently working on my doctorate in corporate social responsibility. And I don't have an education background. I have a tech and marketing background. So I spent many years working in software development companies, mostly entrepreneurial startup environments. So I am comfortable, generally speaking, with technology. And so seeing the intersection of technology and teaching, something that's a newer part of my career, has been really exciting.
Yeah, and that made it really easy to work with Aurora on this Twitter study that we came up with because she likes technology as much as I do. So, and working with our students. So here's a little bit of information about Kendall College. It's been around a very long time. You may have known Kendall in Evanston, Illinois. 9 years ago, I think it's been 9 years now, we moved to our current campus, which is at the corner of Halsted in Chicago. We have a culinary school, School of Business, which is moving towards more of an international School of Business, which is amazing. School of Education and our School of Hospitality Management. We are a subsidiary of the Laureate International Network, which is a really great benefit for us because it allows us to be part of this gigantic international network. We've got schools, 4 campuses in the U.S. and then schools around the world.
4 campuses plus Walden.
Oh, plus Walden.
Yeah, and about 80 institutions worldwide. And also Laureate was the reason we got to do this in the first place. They put out a call about a year ago, right? Actually maybe it was the previous year, the fall of the previous year, they put out a call that they were going to be giving out grants for people who wanted to study social media and education. And Cheryl had gotten her PhD not too long before that in technology and pedagogy, so I emailed her. I was like, hint, hint, you should be doing this. And then she wrote back, hint, hint, you should do this with me. And so we put together a proposal for the grant, to receive the grant, and we received it, got to do the study, and then we got to present at Blackboard World in Vegas last July, which was really fun. And that's when we first did this presentation, and then that led to the Slate presentation, and we presented it at Kendall, and so it's starting to be a fun little thing for us to do, to be able to teach people this. We're really excited about it.
Yeah. All right, so an important piece of this entire Twitter study is connecting it to the mission of your institution. So since our mission is cultivating students' passions into rewarding professions through rigorous learning experiences in the classroom, local communities, and the world, Twitter really lends itself very easily to being able to do this because Twitter is global, it's universal. Anybody around the world can log into a Twitter site or create a Twitter account and connect with other people or follow other people and see what's going on in the world. So this fit really well into Kendall's mission. So think about the mission that you have here at Chicago State and what you can do to connect any kind of engagement tool with that mission. It makes it really easy to get participation and support from either your deans or the president or whoever else you need to get support from. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to tell you what we did, okay? How we implemented Twitter and Kendall. We're going to share some of the reactions, both from students and from faculty, from Aurora and I, because as with any study, there's always going to be mixed messages and mixed information and mixed opinions. And then we're going to share with you, and I've got a handy dandy handout for you, and you can also download it, the handout electronically from my blog, how you can implement this in your class or with your peers, starting your own professional learning network through Twitter. This hashtag, this is called a hashtag, is Teach with Twitter. That's a hashtag that I personally use to share a bunch of different academic tools with whoever cares to follow this hashtag. So we'll teach you how to search on that hashtag, and so you can stay up to date or share other hashtags and other documentation and information back with us. So this is what started it all. We had, every year we come up with an institutional theme for our faculty. And this year we're including staff. So faculty and staff have the same institutional theme this year. And I'll talk about that in the future. But last year's theme was engagement. So how do we engage students with students, students with faculty, and students beyond Kendall's walls? I've always been a big proponent of believing that, the classroom's great, but the really important part of education is learning what's beyond the classroom. Okay, so I could stand up here and talk at my students just like I'm talking at you, but until you go out and find what's actually going on in the real world and bring it back into your studies, your learning, the direction of your program, it's not really going to come to life for students. So this is what our theme was last year. Did I just skip two? All right. Sorry. So we, as a group, the faculty defined what engagement. So we have faculty senate, probably like you do here. So we asked all the faculty to define, what does engagement mean to you? And these are the definitions that we came up with. And the first thing or one of the things they came up with was that, hey, this really fits with our mission, okay? Connecting each other beyond Kendall. So we determined that greater engagement is going to lead to greater retention, right? Is that a buzzword here too, retention?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it's universal, I think, retention. So, and actually, we were able to increase our retention by two percentage points.
Yeah, I forget what
last
that
year.
overall institution was, but it did go up.
It did go up.
And
So
I should know those numbers.
yeah, and I'm not taking 100% credit, but I think having an institutional theme really, and having the theme of engagement really helped people start thinking about, okay, what are we doing? Even our advisors and our enrollment advisors and staff and even the janitors, those guys were, everybody was talking about engagement. So it really worked. So here was the solution that Aurora and I came up with. We created this Twitter experiment, and we wanted to allow the students to use social media in class, which made their heads explode. They're like, really? We could use Twitter in class? We get to use our devices? And I'm like, yep, bring them. So they were very excited about that. There was one caveat. If I caught them using Facebook about something not related to class, I get to post their status. And they didn't want that to happen because I would usually post something silly and goofy and, my shoes are really ugly, stuff like that. And they'd be like, oh my God, Professor Cory. So that was the one caveat. They could bring in their devices, they could leave it open on their desktops and you know, use them in class. We tied the Twitter experiment to the mission. Again, the mission is always central to everything we do. And we also tied this study to the programmatic learning outcomes for each individual school. So the School of Business, they're getting more international, so we wanted to tie that you know, to this Twitter study, and Aurora will talk a little bit about that. And we also tied it to individual class outcomes. So every class has their, as you know, has an individual class outcome that ties to the programmatic outcome, that ties to the mission. So everything becomes this nice, neat package, and everybody knows the direction that you're trying to go in and what the students are supposed to learn. It really helps guide this study and the courses. So we started out with 276 students, 13 different hashtags, and 10 different professors. So those were the volunteers that we got. We asked the entire institution, 10 people said, yeah, we'll do this. So we had a training session much like this and showed them how to use Twitter and how to implement and how to use the Twitter assignment that we came up with. So, all right, so we'll talk a little bit about what Twitter is, and then we'll talk about what Twitter's not. So Twitter, great way to connect with your students. To get them to do research without actually knowing they're doing research, which is the best part. Because how many of your students like to do research? Nobody. Yeah, they're like, yeah, three out of, oh my God. Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is. So students don't want to go to the library, they don't want to, you know, why do I have to do it? Can't I just Google that? And it's like, sure, but then how are you going to know, you know, if this is a good resource and all this stuff. We want them to connect with, since we have more professional programs, we want them to connect with the leaders in their industry. So our culinary students want to connect with Rick Bayless. They want to connect with, I don't know, Emerald Lagasse or whoever else is out there so that they can actually see what's going on. Our hospitality students, they want to follow Steve Wynn and what's that other big guy's name? Oh, I don't know. I always forget it changes so fast, and it's such a fast industry.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Yeah, I don't know that I want to get his tweets.
Guy.
Yeah, I don't know. He wants 20-foot letters on his building. Whatever. And it could only have 140 characters. No, that's Twitter. Never mind. And we thought that this would be a really great way to engage students and the faculty. Because, and that turned out to be really true. I haven't seen faculty be so excited. They come up running up to me in the hallway, oh my God, Cheryl, did you see my tweet? It's like, yeah, okay. But it was really great, and we'll talk a lot about that. And then affirming student knowledge. You may ask yourself, well, how can, you know, you're on Twitter. Seriously, it's social media. How can you affirm student knowledge? Well, by the quality of their tweets, and Aurora and I actually went through and looked at the tweets and said, okay, good tweet, bad tweet. This tweet is, you know, it's just silly tweet, and here's, you know, a tweet that's connecting and sharing, and so we actually kind of ranked all the tweets. And you guys don't have to do that when you do a Twitter study, but it is a good idea to kind of know what these tweets are and what students are finding out there in the world. This is what our students were saying about using Twitter in the class. This is really great. So 60% of them, nearly 60%, said they felt more connected with their instructors. Cha-ching, win, right? You want to connect with your students. You want them to think about not only you, but the course, but you want them to be connected with you, because if you think about it, that means they're connected with what you're doing in the classroom. About 40% said they felt more connected with their peers. A lot of students tend to want to connect more with the instructor. Well, you know, they see me doing something that, you know, that's better, and my peers don't grade me, blah, blah, blah. 60% said they found new resources for research and industry news. Another big win, right? You want them to find all this information. You want them to be connected to what's going on out in the real world, rather than get this watered down, media-centric, Fox News focused news. You want them to go out and find all different kinds of stuff. You want them to be able to be critical thinkers and determine what information they need, they want, you know, and use that for their research. Only 20%, not even 20%, said they made new connections with individuals, companies, or groups that would benefit them in their professional career. I think probably what happened here is, you know, they would follow someone, but they weren't being followed back, or they really didn't find enough people to go follow, I think. Even though we would urge them, they got more into finding articles and news items and stuff. Is that what's?
Yeah, I think they, at this point in their college careers, a lot of them still haven't learned the value of networking and connection. They just haven't figured that out yet. So they weren't seeking it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a big piece that we can take away and start integrating into our courses more. All right, so what Twitter is not. It's not private, okay? So don't be sending private tweets to your students, because even if you're just messaging an individual student, anybody could read that. You could read those discussions. So in the handout I have a little piece on how to keep your account secure and what to do and what not to do. It's not a way for you to stalk your students. Who has nieces, grandkids, children on Facebook and you stalk them? I totally stalk my nieces all the time. They're both in college now, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I did that. You shouldn't be doing that, you know? So that's not a good thing to do with your students. And please, 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 Twitter is not a homework reminder tool. That could possibly be the very worst use of Twitter ever, because this is what students said about homework reminders. They're like, oh my God, this is stupid, it's pointless, blah, 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 blah. So, and I thought this was a great way to kind of enforce that. So please, no homework reminders, share lots and lots of good information. All right, so the results.
Yeah. So the results, sorry, let me grab my water real quick. So the results were interesting. I mean, some of the results were interesting in that we had, you know, the sort of Twitter sucks response. But we'll go into a little bit more detail on that.
Kind of hurt me personally, I'm just saying. It's like, what?
So we're going to go into the results of one particular class that we did this in, because it's a class that where I executed the study myself. So I was a participant as well as one of the research leaders of the study. So there's this class that we have at Kendall that integrates culinary, hospitality, and business students all into a 2-quarter class. So they're together for 6 months. They work in one integrated team. Generally the teams are as many as 10 or 11 students, and over that period of time they have to build a complete business plan for a mixed-use property that includes hotel, restaurant, spa, gym, things like that. So we have, that class can range in size from 52, we've had as many as 110 students in the class, but around 60-something is the general size of the class. Now at Kendall, I don't know if this compares to the way you are at Chicago State, but at Kendall, our classes tend to be very small, like this size. So if I have this many students in a class, I can get to know every single one of their names, and even then some, right? And at Kendall, when we teach a lot of the same students over and over, you build relationships over time. Well, I had taught in the business program for several years. I knew all of the business students. I know them, first and last name and their weaknesses and strengths and all that. However, I didn't know the culinary students and the hospitality students. And they represent the bulk of the 65 students that were in this class. So we had 65 students, 2-quarter class. The class meets only once a week. So most of our classes meet twice a week for an hour and 40 minutes. Again, you have a lot more time. Even if this room is full, that gives me 3 hours a week that I can try to connect and engage with as many of you as possible. In this class, we only met once a week on Fridays with 60-something up to 100 students in a room. And because we didn't, this course isn't meant to be, I'm lecturing new material to you. The course is meant to be, you are applying and integrating all the stuff you've been learning for 2, 3, 4 years. So what we would do is we would bring in industry experts to speak on Fridays. And so most Fridays were me standing in the back of the room watching my students watch a guest speaker. So again, not a lot of time or an opportunity to engage with them. The challenge here, this is why I think this happened not only in my class but in a lot of other classes, the Twitter assignment, as in what are you supposed to do with Twitter, was very vague. I could not administratively follow up and require that every single one of them had a Twitter account tweeted. I tried to send that message out, and so I had a lot of students that would create an account and they never did anything with it. They were maybe like you. That's okay. We can work on that. So, but to be honest about it, also the assignment, and a lot of my assignments tend to be this way because I'm trying to promote critical thinking. The assignment was a bit vague in terms of what am I expecting you to do. And I think for a lot of the classes, that assignment, just like any assignment to go bring in a current event, can be a little vague. What current event? Why? Where? How do I start? What do I do? Why? Tell me the precise thing you want me to do so I can earn my A and get out of this class, right?
And capstone is, the entire capstone course is like that. It's very vague and their minds are...
Yeah, it's a problem-based learning approach that we take in capstone where there's no set formula. It's different every time. It's sort of this living thing that evolves over time. So it is, that Sherwin makes a great point. It's just the whole environment for that class is very vague. So I just want to remind you of the slide we showed a couple of minutes ago because I want to just use this as sort of a touchback point here as I talk about what happened in this particular class. So in terms of what the assignment was, it was mostly related to research. So I was telling students I want you to go out and find ideas and information on the hospitality industry. Figure out who's who, again, back to Cheryl's point about the chefs and stuff, because one of the things they have to do in this property is create a restaurant. And then I wasn't really expecting this at first, but part of the assignment was they had to follow me. And when I say me, I created a separate Twitter account for this class. So I created a Twitter account called KC Capstone instead of using Aurora Ranky, right? Mm-hmm. Now some of the students followed me as a person, but I'm not a hospitality industry person. I don't tweet a lot about hospitality, but under my account for KC Capstone, I was tweeting a lot about hospitality. I also asked the students to use this hashtag because this was a way that we could search on what they were doing, and it allowed us to sort of aggregate the information that we were getting. Oops, sorry. So I wasn't necessarily expecting greater engagement with the students, but this was a real surprise for me, and I'll share some more about that. And then another thing that I didn't go into it thinking about, I mean, we knew this, we knew, oh yeah, kind of in theory, but it wasn't until I was actually seeing this play out that I realized how powerful it was. So, again, just to remind you that what's interesting about this scenario is I don't know these students personally. And sometimes on a Friday morning in the class, I might teach one of the workshops. I might be one of the speakers for the workshops. But again, there's anywhere from 30 to 70 of them in a room at any given time. And I like to be interactive, but how interactive can you really be with that many students? I don't know their names, and so a few would be, they would raise their hands, they would speak out. The business students I could call directly on because I know their names, but that left a lot of other students just sitting there that I'm thinking, hello, are you there? What's going on? And so when I started having them do research using Twitter and using, signing up for Twitter, I got to hear the voice of students that I hardly even knew existed in the classroom because they just blended in with the crowd. But yet, when it came to using Twitter, all of a sudden they were very vocal and very present. So we prompted them to do research, and here's some examples. So this is a tweet by our college because they are we do have a very strong hospitality program. So the college tweeted about hospitality trends, and then I would retweet that. So that the students would see, because the students were following KC Cap course So that was the user that I created for this class, just for this class. Again, to distinguish it from Aurora Ranky, because this was very hospitality focused. So I would ask questions, I would share articles. So in this example here, I'm saying, hey teams, how does this impact your thoughts on building design? And then, and we'll talk later about how you create these shortened links. And then the students could click on this, and it was an article about interesting new design approaches to urban buildings. And here I said, hey, for marketing plans, I'm retweeting another user named HR Advisors, who had tweeted this article on understanding marketing in travel and tourism. So I was trying to set the tone. So me as an instructor, and I think this is a very important part of what we learned, very, very important part. The instructor sets the tone. And we had some instructors that tweeted maybe 5 times in the course of some of our participants. I mean, you know, it was great that they were willing to participate, but they helped demonstrate how low instructor participation will lead to lower student participation. So we had some instructors that just didn't really get going with it. But I would try to do this. I would try to get onto the application I use to do Twitter at least every few days, and just send out. Maybe I would fire out a handful at a time. So you have to kind of figure out what your pace is, and that is an important part of the whole learning process. If you're going to do this once a week, you can't expect a whole lot from your students other than maybe once a week. And we'll show you some data and charts that demonstrate just that. Now, in terms of connecting with industry leaders, I think that I would imagine that the majority of the students that in that graph that you saw earlier where it said connected with industry leaders, I would imagine the majority of those that said they did came from this particular class, because this was something we really emphasized. So in this case, Bob Shelley, who is the general manager of the Lincoln, or was the general manager of the Lincoln Hotel, he came in to speak to Capstone. It was a very engaging speech. Lincoln Hotel is a very cool, funky hotel. He had lots of pictures to show. He talked about how they engage employees, how they do branding, and the students just really love that. And so this is my co-teacher, Phil. And Phil tweeted out, with a photo, he tweeted the photo, Bob Shelley, general manager of the Lincoln Hotel, speaking to Capstone. Always good stuff, and he has a few things, and we'll talk about the hashtag searching later. So this was a great way for us to connect students with thought leaders. Now, what was really cool is this is what students were tweeting during the talk by Bob Shelley. So while Bob Shelley was there, they're tweeting things like, great talk from GM Bob Shelley to future general managers. This is one of, these are all students. Another student, getting a whole new perspective on branding and creating a story behind a concept, inspired by Mr. Shelley. I wonder if they're hiring. Wow, right? I wonder if this hotel is hiring, totally inspired by the company culture and Bob Shelley's words. Epiphanies and face palms at the Casey Cat workshop with Hotel Lincoln. As a resident of Lincoln Park and a Kendall College Capstone student, I'm absolutely obsessed with Hotel Lincoln. Now, a few things I want to point out here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
There's a few things I want to point out. When you're first doing Twitter, it's almost like understanding a little bit of a different language, right? Like if you looked at this, you're like, I'm sorry, is that actually a sentence? And it is, right?
Yeah. So throw your grammar out the window, not your grandma.
It's a little bit of a text talk thing. So this student is saying, as a resident of Lincoln Park, right? So LT, and not everybody's going to know that, but we know that because we know it's Hotel Lincoln, and a Kendall College Capstone student. Now, what's really critical about this is that she could have just typed Kendall space college, but because she typed at Kendall College, now Kendall College, our social media and our marketing department, when they're reading their Twitter feeds, this is, you've been mentioned. And now Kendall College can reply back to the student and say, I'm so glad you're enjoying your classes. Or other people who are out there going, what's going on with Kendall College? And they're searching for things about Kendall College, they'll see this. And then the KC Capstone, that's the course, the username I was using as the instructor. And so instead of just saying a Capstone student, she said I'm a KC Capstone student. So again, I now see that, because if she didn't do this, I wouldn't necessarily know that she had done this Twitter, right? This tweet, sorry. So absolutely obsessed. Now she's also given a shout out to Hotel Lincoln, as did some of the other students, either using the hashtag or the @sign. And we'll talk later about the differences of those things. And then she's even thrown in something that, you know, was kind of funny, saying, you know, hashtag obsessed, right? Now, this is a great example of a student. I had never known her before. I hardly connected with her. If I saw her walk down the hall at this point, I don't even think I'd recognize her. She was one of our top tweeters in this class. She contributed really great information, really cool research, and that allowed me to engage with her in a way I never, ever would. Because she's a chef, which is not a program that really I'm connected to, and she was kind of quiet in class. But on Twitter, wide awake, very alive. So they were able to connect. Now, look at how cool this is. Hotel Lincoln responds.
Yeah, there's your student affirmation.
So thank you for allowing me in your classroom. I had a wonderful time and look forward to welcoming each of you at KC Capstone. Here, they are replying to one of our students. You don't see it over here, but Kelsey was one of the students that tweeted to Hotel Lincoln. They reply right back to her, right? And then again, you see another student thanking and connecting with Hotel Lincoln.
Just a question, this is great, about the language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
The I'm trying to understand what all the different things mean,
Yep.
right?
Just be careful, there's a camera on right behind you.
What the add such and such, what hashtag really means, because I see some people use it as a topic piece, but then I see, like, for example, hashtag obsessed.
Yeah. We'll do a full exercise on that. It'll be a lot clearer once we.
One thing I do want to point out, this is me putting my teacher hat on, and it's like, oh my God, they're not paying attention to our guest speaker. They're all heads down in their phones. Well, they're going to be heads down in their phones anyway. This engages them with what is going on in the classroom. Even though you may feel uncomfortable with it, you may feel awkward, you know, standing up here as the teacher, it's like, oh my God, they should be, you know, giving this man the time of day. He took out, you know, precious time, but they are paying attention. It's just a different way that students do these things anymore, and it's hard coming from the teacher perspective to let that go, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And when you see the results of this, it's like, oh my God, they totally get it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's going to be the hard part of, you know, when you start implementing it and it's like, aren't you paying attention to me? And how come you're, you know, what are you doing on your phone? They're like, oh, just tweeting a picture of, you know, our guest speaker or whatever's going on in the classroom. So,
it's a great point.
Yeah, it's hard to let that go.
So, and again, a great way to engage the students and faculty. One of the things that we did as part of this class is the students, each time we run this program, the students have an actual live address in the Chicago area. Sometimes it's a blank, just empty lot. We've really only had, I think, one empty lot. Usually it is a building that exists. So this particular time, the students were going to be building a fictitious hotel on top of Block 37 downtown. We've done the Congress Hotel, we've done the Wrigley Building, we've done a lot of different properties in Chicago.
Hotel.
Yeah, so here we use social media. We were also using Facebook on this particular day. We use Facebook a lot with this particular class because the students are in teams, and the teams are very competitive, but they have to work very closely together. So they create closed Facebook groups, and they invite us as instructors to be a part of that, so we can just kind of monitor and help where we can. So they used Facebook in this case to create a treasure hunt competition among the teams, but they had to find clues around the city and then show pictures of those on Facebook, and the first team to get all the clues won something. You know, we had like a little prize for them. And so some of them, as long as they were also doing that, also were tweeting the picture. So we had lots of these. The day that we did this, now when we show you the graph later, you're going to see this huge spike in our bar chart on a particular day, and that's because of things like this. It was the day that Bob Shelley spoke, the day they did the tours. There are certain activities that really will spike, right? So like right now, if you were teaching a class that was on aviation with the missing airlines flight from Malaysia, there would probably be a huge spike in what's going on, because there's so much conversation right now on the technology we use in planes and how we find planes and how we track things and airline safety. And so if you were teaching a class on aviation, there's always a lot of interesting going on in aviation, but there would probably be a tremendous spike in activity over the last couple of weeks. So that's the other thing you have to remember. This is based on current events, and depending on what's going on, you may see spikes in the activity. And again, the teacher sets the tone. So sometimes what we would see in the chart is a spike in my activity and then a subsequent spike in their activity, because I would set the tone for them. Yeah.
Did you create a Facebook page for the class?
We don't. We let them create group pages.
Okay.
Actually, our meeting and event teacher, she does, because she uses Facebook to communicate the meeting and event and conference aspect of it. We have a group of students that are studying meeting and event planning, and in conjunction with the capstone, those students are planning the trade show and doing a lot of the other events, and so they use social media in a different way. They use it to market what's going on in the program outside, and then also to communicate internally with students. So here's, again, another way to engage. So this is another student who she's an international student, very quiet in class, not exactly active, but she was one of our top tweeters in this project. So she says, "Good morning, everyone. Have fun in the class, in our workshops today." And she puts this little picture, because we would give them little name tags and things, and we would remind them to do their tweeting in class. So we'd give them little cards and stuff. So this is just her saying to the world, and this is not really part of any sort of academic outcome, right? These are, all of this could be tied possibly to academic outcomes. An academic outcome in this class might be explore careers in hospitality, right? This is exploring careers in hospitality. These may not be academic in nature, but we're engaged with a student. And here's a student who's excited enough about what's going on in this class, and she knows that if she does this, she's going to get a personal reply from me, or I may favorite her tweet. And I did. A lot of times when this student would say something like this, I would favorite her tweet. That's like my way of walking up to you in class and saying, "I'm really glad you're here today." I mean, how often do we do that as instructors, right? We really don't, right? But if you walk up to a student and said, "I'm so glad for your eye contact today," and